Hello, hello, and welcome once again to Daystar Rising Academy and to my Facebook Live. My name is Rosemary Blash, and as you are coming in, just let me know, one, that you can hear and see me okay, and two, let me know where you're listening from. And just want to thank you for spending a few minutes with me this evening. For those of you that have been on my Facebook Lives in the past, you know that I am I'm a believer. I love the Lord. My husband and I are both called to the family in the education mountain, and we really believe that the Lord has those two areas for us to make an impact. We definitely have a love for children and a desire just to be a blessing. I'm also uh, enthusiastic about homeschooling, and you've heard me talk about Charlotte Mason in the past. And I just wanted to give a little bit of more encouragement, maybe some more reasons to consider, homeschooling. Or there are a couple of different options out there, different ways to educate your children. So before we get started, we'll say a quick word of prayer. Father, we just thank you for this time together. I ask that you would just bless those that are joining live and joining on replay. Father, I ask that you would just allow me to articulate your desires and your vision, Father, and just to be an encouragement to parents and children, and just to be brave and to really listen to your call and consider what you're calling us to. So I just call everyone blessed. I speak peace and joy in Jesus' name. So thank you once again for joining. Thank you to replay viewers. I do want to just kind of reflect. We all know we've been over a year thinking about and dealing with and being in this place of COVID and various levels of lockdown, and especially with education. We went from totally online to a hybrid and back and forth with that, and then a lot of schools are now face to face, or may still be doing hybrid, or well, there's still, I think, for a lot of children or a lot of parents, there are options in terms of face to face or being at home and receiving education online. And our world of technology is wonderful and very important, and it definitely has its place. And I've talked before on some of these lives about some of the benefits and also some of the things we need to be cautious about, particularly when we're talking about our children, when it comes to the screens and phones and computers and being able to go anywhere on the earth through the internet. There is plenty of opportunity for things that are dangerous to our children. There are people out there that would do our children harm, that are on the internet, and that's a scary thing to think about, but it is a reality. And we know that technology is not going to go anywhere, but we as parents and believers really need to be paying attention to what is happening when it comes to online education and our children. And ultimately, whether and I tutor online, so I'm very much in favor of receiving education through the online method and mechanisms. We do have to be aware that there are limitations. I also believe that we need to be aware that that is not the only way, and that's not where we stay. You can take classes online, but you don't have to stay stuck to that screen all day long. There's a balance. There's a way to do things. There's still books that are hard. The actual copy in your hand. You may get the assignment, maybe even have a discussion online, but you don't necessarily have to consume all of your information online. And there's a lot to be said for making sure that you have hard copies of certain documents. Your Bible, we have Bibles on the phone and on the computers, wonderful, but make sure you've got a hard copy as well. The Constitution, our different founding documents, those things, they can be manipulated when they're online. But when you have that copy, that's not going to be manipulated. And even when we look at some of our books and books that have been written long ago, there have been, abridged versions, and they've been modified to some degree. And this is even true of the Bible. So you want to be aware of those changes that have been made, and where you can, and especially where it's appropriate. There are a lot of times when you may need to go back to that original document, or that original, if you can. There are some museums you may have to go to look at a book in its original form. But we need to be able to trust where those words are coming from. And the words, the documents, they contain ideas. The Bible itself is anointed. So we've got the Spirit of God in the Bible. We have the Word, it's living. And so that makes it different from, our Constitution. But the Constitution was based on the scriptures. So those things, knowing really what the foundations really are, makes a difference in terms of how we go forward in educating our children and ourselves. And that's just kind of touching on some of the documents. But when we think about the people that are online, there are a lot of people, as I mentioned, that are online, wonderful people. But there are some that are not so wonderful and would like to do children harm. And we can think of drastic situations and drastic scenarios. And we can also think of those ideas that are out there online that are anti-God, anti-American, anti-family, anti-godly principles. There are plenty of elements out there online that are against what God has established. And the foundation is of a different sort, is of the enemy. And so all of those things we need to be aware of. And that brings me even to kind of looking at the pre-COVID situation in our classrooms. There were some concerns there. There were and are still some ideologies. There are still some ideas that are promoted and pushed in schools at all levels that are ungodly. We have and I encourage parents, whether it be homeschool. You definitely have control over what you're teaching your children. So more, even the private schools, public schools, charter schools, the online schools, pay attention to what your children are receiving. Prior to COVID, we could go back and think about, if there was sex ed taught in the schools at whatever grade level your child may be in. Some of those ideas are not godly. When we have promoting more than two genders, that is not godly. That is not what the Lord established, and it's damaging to our children, and it causes confusion. And we want to guard against that kind of idea, or vilifying America. Just stating that the United States is a terrible country and nothing good about it, and the foundations are evil. Putting those kind of ideas out damages, and it really, who can love their country if you're always being told that it is, our founding fathers were horrible people, were not godly, we're not even looking at godly principles to establish the documents and the idea of America and freedom and those types of things. Those things are still an issue in our schools whether they're open and your child can go to that school 5 days a week, or maybe there's 3 or 4 days, whatever the situation. I'm still cautioning when it comes to the school system, and still cautioning parents to become involved to the extent that you can. School board meetings. There have been in the news not just recently where parents have actually stood up and said, because of things that they didn't agree with, they've had school boards resign, or school board members have slipped and said something in a online meeting and not realizing that parents were there, and so they had to resign. So what am I saying? I'm saying that it's our responsibility. So when you have children, you're the parent, and it's your responsibility to protect that child, and their education is your responsibility. You may send them to school, but it is still your responsibility to know what's being taught. And that's different from defending your child if they are doing wrong in the classroom. That's not what I'm saying. Sometimes there are parents who will kind of deny the fact that their child can be a child in the classroom. And so when a teacher is having behavior issues and they're asking for your support them. Get as much of the story as you can, but know that children will be children. And so they get caught up in things. They're not bad, they're children, and they need to be directed and corrected and loved. And discipline is a form of love. So all that to say, make sure that you're aware of what's happening in your school, and allow yourself. I would encourage you to take some time and pray about what you may want to do for the next year. Schools are getting ready to close down for this current year, and we'll see what happens in the fall. I truly am praying that things will calm down when it comes to the level of the in and out that we've had to do. That was one thing that I was concerned about, as far as being, online 100%, to doing the hybrid, to, going back 100%, because the numbers increased. There's so much that you can control when it comes to, your public school. And definitely put the effort in, but also consider looking at homeschooling. Look at the possibility of there's a term, pandemic pods, which I'm not crazy about, but that's basically they were created because parents wanted to come together in small groups and maybe had an adult. It may just be kind of monitoring what the child is doing on the in school, when they should be on their computer, making sure that they're actually attentive and that type of thing. And that could also be, you've hired a teacher. Maybe 2 or 3 families have come together and hired a teacher to teach their children. It's a different look when it comes to homeschooling, but it is just as legitimate, particularly when you have a situation when schools are shut down. So pandemic pods, you can look them up for different groups on Facebook. You can, micro schools is another term you might look for. And even you could probably even, do alternative schooling and see what's out there. Talk to some teachers as well. And talk to families that that are like-minded and come together. That's a lot of what happens when it comes to the homeschool families. Many families will come together and they will form a co-op, and in that co-op, they may take turns actually teaching a particular subject. So maybe a dad is very good at the sciences, or and even maybe a sport. You might combine something. So that dad is going to teach chemistry, and you'll form a basketball league. Mom might focus on another subject. So you're able to share the responsibility, so it doesn't fall on one person's shoulders. When you're volunteering your time like that, you're coming together as a community. You can talk about, okay, what is acceptable and what is not. Some families are totally fine with their children, not having to wear masks. They've looked at the science, which says the children are not negatively impacted, or if they do get sick, they are dealing with it very well by and large. And if we go back and if we think about the fact that there are things that are much more harmful to our children, and when we look in comparison to COVID, we can look at flu. Flu is a much more dangerous situation for children and a lot of adults than COVID. If you look at the numbers, you'll see that bears that out. I encourage you to research that out and find out for yourself. We would not have thought. It was kind of a for teachers. I spent over 20 years in the classroom, but as teachers, we knew that, okay, we're coming back into the classroom. We have children. Children don't necessarily know how to sneeze, so they don't spray everything. So we've kind of figured, okay, I am either going to get a cold because your body does get run down, you've got all those germs, or I'm going to need to take some extra vitamin C or whatever you do to take responsibility for your own health. Me as a teacher, I knew that. And so I did what I needed to do so that I could stay healthy in the midst of the children not really knowing how to stay as healthy. Sometimes they don't come with parents always sending the best things for them to eat. They may not get rest. Their little bodies do get worn down, and so they do get colds. I don't have to necessarily be subject to that if I know how to take care of my body, which goes back also to, in general, taking responsibility for your body. But we never thought of shutting down schools. As probably, we would have been, the thought, I know in general, it didn't enter anyone's mind. So we can live a full life, even if you're having to make some adjustments. So once again, I'm encouraging to allow yourself to have a little bit of a different mindset, a shift in mindset. One of the things that I would also encourage you to do, I did a interview with Penny Douglas, probably I think about 2 months ago, on the Daystar Facebook page, and she has many resources. She's actually created some resources, and they're you can get access to them if you check out. Probably, I guess, going down, if you scroll down, you can find out the interview. It was about an hour long, a lot of good information. Even she talked about the process when she was teaching her son how to read and how it seemed like it was kind of, delayed, but in fact, he picked it up. And so even we're told, and I suppose it may seem very true that if a child does not learn how to read, by the time they're in 3rd grade, they'll never learn. And I would challenge you to think about that and really allow yourself to look at some data and maybe challenge that assumption. Because you will hear, and I have heard personally, many stories from homeschool moms who say that, their child maybe didn't read in 1st grade or 2nd grade. But they kept working on it, and you took away some of that pressure. One of the biggest things that children need is they need to know that they are loved, they need to know that they are safe, and they need to have a sense of value, that they are valued apart from what they can do. It's the fact that they are alive, that the Lord brought them into this earth that gives them value. It's not that they can read super quick. Some children will read, early, and some will read later. So we don't have to necessarily just know that, if he's not reading by or she's not reading by a certain time, they're doomed. That is not true. I can tell you that there were different times in my life when if I was tackling a particular subject, if I didn't get it, it was difficult for me this year, then next year it was easier. There was something different about my maturity level, my being able to handle that subject matter, and it's true also for everything. And some children are going to excel in one subject as opposed to another. That is perfectly normal, and it really gives you a clue as to who they are, what their skills are, what their talents are, what the Lord has placed inside of them, and what you can nurture. So be encouraged. Know that there are resources out there. If you have questions, if you even would like to be, if you'd like some help in doing some of that searching, I can definitely help you. But if you go on Facebook and you put in the search bar Pandemic Pod and put your area, maybe your city, you will find people that have come together and that are working together. You may choose to continue in that phase, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Probably a lot right with that. So I just wanted to make sure that I did cover, especially the idea and the reality of your children being valuable. They are precious, fearfully and wonderfully made. There's no other child like your child on the earth. And there's a calling, there's a reason that they're here. And if I remember and if I think about them, perhaps you could say the same thing. You may have enjoyed certain activities, something about the arts or maybe a particular sport, and you kind of had to put that aside as you matured and you realized, or you were kind of geared towards making sure that the academic part of your life was strong. And that is important, but we don't have to shut off that artistic side, or the kinesthetic side, the part that likes to work with our hands. That does not have to be shut off in our children. We can nurture that. We can give them, Charlotte Mason talked about giving them a broad feast, letting them enjoy many different things so they can really discover what the Lord has put inside of them. So do that for your children. And even if you are, maybe you're fine with your school, I encourage you to continue to stay involved with your school, with your teacher, and make room for those places where they can, enjoy sports and the arts, whether it be music or some of the fine arts, so that your children can have a full life. And this brings them the ability to express their praise and their worship and their love to the Lord in many different ways. And it also can open up different skills. There are studies that talk about how music really helps build and strengthen mathematics skills. So things do enhance one another. And that's the beauty of really allowing a full and complete life. So I mentioned the pandemic pods and the micro schools. And before I go, I just want to encourage you also, I believe I have this right, but tomorrow is the National Day of Prayer. There are things going on in your city. If you haven't heard, do a search, see what's going on, see how you can participate. There may be things online that are happening. I know that there in some instances, some things have been shut down because they didn't want to gather. But let's not let that stop us from praying, really seeking the Lord, praying for our schools and our families and our children, and bringing them before the Lord, and praying for our nation and our government. Our governmental leaders need our prayers. Our nation needs our prayers. There is much going on right now that is requiring the church to stand up and pray and declare some things. We are the legislative body. I think it's the Greek calls us the ecclesia, and we can take a stand and declare the things that the Lord has established, and that in that we can make a difference in your region, and our nation. And this is where we have authority. Your block, your street, your block that you live on, your city, that's where you belong. Your school, that's where you are. You have authority in those areas, and you can make declarations. And above all, pray for your child's teacher. That's very important. There's a lot of pressure that they are under, the children and the teachers, and really that's going to be a blessing and make a difference in their lives, and ultimately in your child's life, and then the children that will come after your children for that particular teacher's class. Also want to mention that if you are in the West Charlotte area on the 8th of May, which is Saturday, we're going to be out just opening up. The portal has already been open. There have been outreaches. There have been times of ministry and just worshiping the Lord. But we're going to be entering into that time. I would encourage you to go on to our Facebook page, Disciple One CLT, Disciple One Charlotte, and check out what we are doing. There are many things that we can and we need to be doing to answer some of the problems that we see in our area. And so this is one of the things that we as a ministry are very involved in. And it's going to be an awesome time of praise and prayer, and again, opening up that portal. And we're excited about some things that we are about to embark on. So come on out. We would love to meet you. That's Saturday, May 8th. And we'll be out there for about 3 hours. And we'll make sure we put in the exact time. I don't want to give you the wrong time. So I have really appreciated you spending the time with me. And I trust that this has been a blessing to you. Please share this with your friends. Encourage your family members to listen. Maybe share this with others. And if you find yourself still isolated, I would push against that. And by that I mean there are many different ways that you can connect if you are concerned about your health. But don't be isolated. Connect with people. Use the phone, use Zoom, and then do some research and find out how you can strengthen your immune system, and so that you can be healthy. This is an exciting time, particularly for the church, to really show the goodness of the Lord and show that there is a difference. There was a difference between the believer and those that don't have a hope. And we as the church, we as people that know the Lord Jesus Christ, we have that responsibility to show his glory. And it's also a privilege. So thank you once again. It has been an honor just to spend some time with you. I bless you. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully on the 8th. Also, don't forget to check out Kevin Blash. He comes on his page with the Father's Heart to You, the second and fourth Wednesday of the month at 8 p.m. And Yvonne Hicks, who is the founder of Leasing Heaven Ministries, she comes on her This Is That page, and she shares God stories that are absolutely awesome and challenging. She's on the third Wednesday at 8 p.m. And just want to encourage you to check out all of those resources. And I pray that you're blessed, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.